We're gonna get started. There was one thing I wanted to double down on that I mentioned yesterday that is worth mentioning. It will feel almost like two different classes in here between the homework and what we do in class. The reasoning behind that, the homework is preparation for part 2 of this course and is really independent from what we're going to be studying in class because we cannot be teaching you how to make video games when it's time to make video games. This is the how to make video games portion of the class, and it is completely separate from what we talk about in class. It's going to feel that way. Sorry in advance, but it's, at least from my perspective, the best way to do it. Let me know if you disagree by the end of the quarter, and I will take that under consideration. All right, last time we introduced kind of what is a game and started talking through some experts' definitions of games. This was the third that we had looked at, was Sid Meier's definition as a series of interesting decisions, and we decided this was a little on the vague side, but on the other hand, what is interesting, that interesting is kind of an individual opinion as to whether something was interesting or not. But when you're designing games, I think the takeaway from this definition is that it's worth making the player feel like they have multiple valid ways to progress, that they have an idea of when they do select an option, that they have some idea of what the result is going to be, even if that result surprises them a little bit. It shouldn't surprise them drastically. You don't want to, we've all played well, maybe we haven't, but some of us have played the RPG where you select a dialogue option and then what your character actually says is vastly different from what you selected. You choose what you think is the peaceful option and then they start beating the crap out of the character they're talking to. Wait, I was trying to befriend you. There's a difference there, a distinction there, yeah.
No, I'm just thinking of like the one Telltale game where it's like you're at a bar, you're given an option that says glass hit. And it's like, oh, just slime a glass. No, you pick up the bottle and
yeah, you can't have ambiguity in your dialogue options if what's going to happen from that is one of the ambiguous choices. But it's worth being able to be predictable, but not necessarily guaranteed. If they say exactly what you mean, and there's a very predictable outcome from that, then there should be some surprise somewhere with regards to those options. Otherwise, they're kind of cut, dry, and boring. We're going to switch from everyone we've talked about so far has been a game designer only. Now we're going to start talking academics who also dabble in game design. We're going to see a shift from very vague, short definitions to more longer-winded. So Tracy Fullerton is a game designer, USC professor. She says it is a closed formal system that engages players in structured conflict and resolves its uncertainty in an unequal outcome. We need to break that down because there's a lot there. So formal elements, he defines to be the elements differentiating a game from other types of media. So these are the rules, procedures, who is playing the game, the resources in the game, the objectives the players have, the boundaries, what separates the game from not being a game, the conflict within the game, and the game outcome, win, lose, draw, achieve something, etc. So those are the formal elements when she says a formal system. The dynamic systems, in this case, are going to be methods of interaction that evolve as the game is played. So what changes from the beginning based on the rules, what evolves based on players adhering to the rules, and this evolves naturally from that. There's conflict structure, ways players interact with each other. There's uncertainty, interaction between randomness, what happens outside of the player's control, determinism, what happens based on the decisions the players make, and strategy, what the players will decide to do and choose to do based on anticipated consequences. And finally, we have an unequal outcome. How does the game end? It should be unequal and that players should have different outcomes. Or at least there should be a different outcome. It's not everybody wins. Maybe the players win and the system loses. Maybe a player wins and another player loses. Maybe there is a draw, but it's some kind of unequal outcome that every game ends differently. Every instance of that game ends differently. So she also has some additional takeaways from her book on game design. The big takeaway is it's one thing to sit in a class and be told how to make games. It's another thing to go actually make them. So the focus of this class is going to be, the lecture portion will be on how to analyze games, but I cannot tell you how to go make a game. That is, games are as artistic as computer science gets. Really, there's so much expression in games, from art to design. Just thinking about how to think about games, what you do with that, what you take away from that is going to be your own. I cannot tell you how to do that. You will be successful or not successful, and it will not match with your expectations given what you thought going into designing a game. And the only way to get better at that is to iterate, to actually make them. So part 2 of this course, you are not making one game. I really wanted to shove 3 games in there, but there just isn't enough time in a quarter system to make 3 games. So part 2 of this course, assuming that you were taking it, you will make 2 games, one in the first half, one in the second half, in different groups. But you will have complete and total freedom as to what you make. The only outcome from that is going to be what other people in the class think of your game. I do not grade your games. You all will grade each other's games. I will just grade your reviews of each other's games to figure out how well or how good are you at disseminating the information and your experience. How technical is that? How good is that feedback? That is what I will grade. But your opinion is yours to share with whomever designs that. So you're going to be designing games for a general unknown public the rest of this class, which is exactly what you would be doing in industry. You'd be designing games for a general unknown public. So it's worth iterating that. You're not trying to make a game that I think is fun. I am biased. You're all biased, but you're all biased differently, so it's a much better sample. And it is perfectly okay to design a terrible game. That's another reason why we have this part 1 in advance. I want to give you some experience with thinking about games so that you minimize by the time you reach part 2 of this course that you design a truly terrible game. That said, it's a great learning process. You will learn a lot, and probably the most, if you design something that is not fun rather than something that is very fun. It's much better to learn and rule out the size of the space of what design decisions didn't work so well together than what really worked well together. So those are big takeaways from Tracy's book. Last one is Jesse Schell. He says that game design is a problem-solving activity approached with a playful attitude. What is a playful attitude? Anyone want to take a stab at what we might mean by that? Yeah.
Like I think it has to do with like leisure. The fact that you are doing this of your own will and volition, saying, I'm coming to this for no other reason than to do this particular.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing it to follow the rules of the game. You're voluntarily accepting the rules as a limitation in order to do the best that you can within that rule set. As soon as the goal is to win, well, now you just have to knock out your opponent, leave them unconscious, and there's no way they can move. Therefore, you win by default. Or something else ridiculous that does not adhere to the rules of the game in ways that help you. Other thoughts?
Just like embracing the joy of like experimenting.
Yeah.
That specific kind of.
Yeah, playing around with the rule, accepting an alternate reality where the rules are the reality.
The joy of discovering the rules too.
Yeah, discovering and integrating yourself with those rules, doing the best you can within those limitations. So, philosophical exercise for you. Imagine you and someone else are engaged in the same activity. For example, a foot race. Your partner is in it solely to take place in the race, have a good time. You know there's a bomb at the finish line and it must be defused before it goes off. Who is more likely to adhere to the rules of the activity?
Your partner.
Yeah, they are approaching it with a playful attitude. You are not approaching it with a playful attitude. You have a mission, and that mission is to stay alive. And you will do anything within the confines of reality, not just the rules of the foot race, in order to do that. So we can define this concept of a illusory attitude, which is the willingness to follow the game's rules. It makes it much easier to achieve the goal of the game if you're willing to follow the rules, because, Well, we've all experienced what it's like to play with someone who would rather win or would rather, I don't know, we'll just take League of Legends and say that that entire space is full of people who would, if they could surpass, if they could break the rules, they would, just that they could call you names. I will bash on League of Legends probably more than you care me to in this sense. I apologize for all League of Legends enjoyers.
Go for it. Whenever the Game Awards roll around, I vote for it just to keep it relevant so I can keep bashing on it.
It's only a joke as long as it stays relevant. If it fades into obscurity, we can't make fun of it anymore.
Exactly.
So, an example of illusory attitude is golf. There are many, many ways out there to get a golf ball into a hole than to stand very far away from it and hit it with a bent stick. When you adopt that illusory attitude, then you can set challenges that can be overcome solely for the joy of overcoming those achievements. And if you don't have a illusory attitude, it's much easier to overcome them, but you don't get the joy out of overcoming them because it's much easier to overcome them. You as the designer, when you make a game, can now create the rules and the achievement so that it creates joy when someone overcomes that challenge. Last definition I'll show you is Keith Bergen. Says a game is a system of rules in which agents compete by making ambiguous, endogenously meaningful decisions. So this also has to be broken down. Academics like their big words. Ambiguous, players have to make a choice without having full knowledge of the outcome or consequence of those decisions. Endogenously meaningful, the choice is meaningful because the choice affects the game system. You don't make a choice and then have it not have an effect. We've all played that RPG as well, where it doesn't matter what dialogue choice you make, it all leads to exactly the same action, and it doesn't feel like you made a meaningful decision. On the other hand, if every single action that you make, or you could make, has a drastic effect on the outcome of the story, on the outcome of the characters, on the outcome of the gameplay, then the decision becomes much more, you have to sit and think about that. What would I do? What would the character that I'm role playing as do? What outcome do I want out of this? What's going to be the most fun to engage with? Those are interesting decisions. It is very limited. You wanted at the time to narrow down what games are to what makes them distinct and unique from other forms of media. But defining games have their own kind of limitations in general. It's difficult to hone in on one definition of a game because even games mean different things to different people. People can attach themselves to different kinds of games, video games, board or card games, word games, tabletop games. They're all different in their nature and how we engage with them. Some are more social than others or can be more social. Some are more independent. Some are more physical and in front of you. Some are more digital and abstract. So there are many different reasons to play games in general. And why a person engages with a particular game can vary from person to person and decide whether a game is the right choice for a person at a particular point in time. People play games for different reasons. They want different things out of playing the game. We're going to discuss all of these ideas in a lot more detail when it comes to how are you going to design a game? What are you trying to get? What are you trying to emote out of your audience when you make when those design decisions? They should all kind of work in harmony to make a game that some subset of people really want to play at a particular point in time. You cannot make a game that pleases everybody. People have tried, that's always failed. But we can access a slice of people that are out there and really speak to them and make a game that is very motivating to them to play. So let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. What human needs are fulfilled when we play games?
You mean like psychological needs? Is that kind of
Sure.
Okay. I don't know. People want like the degree of victory, I guess.
Yeah, so there could be a competition, a competitive instinct that is overcome when you do something. Sure.
I think a lot of what games do for me personally is like brief, feelings of accomplishment that feel very real, even though you know there's some kind of simulation.
Yeah, joy of achievement and
I
one,
feel like
two.
if you play like survival games, it like fulfills your need to like bully strangers on the internet.
I mean, you can also say that about League of Legends, like.
I feel like League of Legends is a survival game.
You like storytelling? It's another one. Like,
Yeah.
I want to tell a story.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell a very moving story, and it's a much more interactive medium than any other medium that's out there. You don't have to sit and passively watch someone else make decisions like you would in a movie or a TV show. You can have them actively making decisions. So it's an excellent source of role play.
It can be like whatever the person playing the game at that time decides they want from it. Like I can play the same game at a different time and get like I can play it for competitiveness to like scratch the competitive itch, but I can play it more casual itch.
If it's designed for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
I'd say in really broad terms, this even goes beyond like how we play games, just like animals in Animal Kingdom and stuff. They devise their own games to kind of basically with their neural pathways and like because it allows them to like doing that allows their brains to develop and so they could be more adaptable to surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. How about social interactions? People play games for that. Yeah.
Simulators. I mean, like film simulators are a big
Yeah.
deal.
You can learn things through it.
Have like a thing. Just download it on Steam.
How about
You know, like Animal Crossing, you know, like having a wholesome escape of chaos.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The reason.
putting yourself in positions you wouldn't put yourself in real life? I don't know about you, but I have no desire to race down Sprague at 200 miles per hour. But man, in a simulator, would that be fun? So, can summarize this: structured conflict. It's not unstructured conflict like you don't like how I teach, we're gonna meet out back. We're gonna deal with this ourselves. I have no interest in doing that, but structured conflict within the rules of a game, now that's much more interesting. Yeah.
When I was in like elementary school, some kids tried to settle something. Like 1v1ing each other in Modern Warfare 3, so I was like, dude, we're in the next page.
Yeah, right? That's so strange to me, but also it makes sense from the concept of what a game is. It's an avenue for the resolution of a completely irrelevant conflict. Desire the experience of being someone else. We only ever get to experience life as ourselves. But what if we were a fighter pilot? What if we were an astronaut? What if we were a fantasy hero? There are lots of situations we can put ourselves in that, maybe is the result of a childhood dream or something that just seems like, it's something that I would love to have experienced in an alternate life, in an alternate universe. You can experience that third hand through games.
I feel like that's why Schedule 1 was so popular. I don't know if you know what that is. It was like
Yeah.
a drug simulator.
Yeah.
So it's like something that I feel like is so simple, but it's just like it got so popular because no one's going to like risk their lives. Like most people wouldn't, especially like in college, selling
Yeah.
drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's so fun.
For me, it's the making money aspect, the maximizing of management and making money. I love that in games. I have a very mathematical brain and a problem-solving, problem-oriented brain. So if I can find the conflict within a rule structure and try to optimize that, that makes my brain turn, and I love it. We desire excitement. Different things excite different people in terms of the games that they play. Thinking about how these interrelate, how can you design something for all of this? Or for some subset of it? Do you focus on one thing or another thing, or do you find something that might speak to different aspects of this for different people? How do you think that up? How do you brainstorm ideas that are going to be fun conflict where you experience being someone else and is exciting to engage with?
One of the most successful catch-all games I've kind of seen are usually in like the sandbox genre, like Minecraft and Terraria have very thriving communities in a lot of aspects where there's like competitive servers, sandbox servers, stuff like that. But it's almost like, it's kind of like they're using the game to create a micro game inside of it that fulfills these needs. So
If you open up modding tools as well, it allows the player base to customize the game to if your design doesn't exactly do what other people want, if your sandbox environment is good enough for them to design their desired experience, then they can take over and design the experience that they want in your tools. Yeah. So in general, we enjoy playing games to explore an unknown environment. Exploring Spokane is getting less and less desirable by the day. To experience a narrative, a challenge, especially a challenge that does not have long-term consequence. To let out a natural desire for competition in ways that you don't get to do in a daily basis. I mean, your course evaluations are one thing, but art, we enjoy playing games to experience very nicely customized art for game graphics. Excitement, social interaction. There's a lot of value in games that they can provide. So let's dive into something. I want you to take about 60 seconds, and you'll probably want to actually write this down. Come up with just a list of games that you enjoy. This can be a top 3, a top 5, a top 10, even a top 1. That's probably fine, but just a list of games you enjoy. Leave yourself space under each one for the next question. It's okay if your list isn't fully complete. How many people wrote down League of Legends? Anyone willing to admit it?
Get out.
Good, nobody's dead to me. Under each game, now list several reasons you enjoy playing it.
Oh, reason why I'm going to play it?
Yeah, each of those different games, several reasons you enjoy playing that game. What do you get out of playing that game? As you start to finish this list, now identify commonalities. So if you had to abstract the 3 to 5 most common reasons you play the games that you like the most, what are those things? As you see those commonalities, what does this tell you about yourself as a game player?
I'm probably a narcissist.
That's fun.
I think for me, the strongest thing is like compelling narrative with good art and world building, a score, what art styles they use, why they use it, the messaging you're giving to the player.
Okay.
You know, games like Persona 5, that was in my top 10. Just wonderful score, wonderful art style.
I still need to play it. I only ever played 3 back on the PS2.
Very similar to 3 with the messaging, just a little bit different. They don't use invokers to
Yeah,
their persona.
that doesn't fly so much anymore, does it?
No.
I can't wait for Persona 6 where they shoot themselves up or something.
Spin back yourself.
I would say that I mostly play games to interact with my friends and family. I think
Okay.
my-
Yeah, it's a social outlet for you.
Yeah, I would say so. Not necessarily strangers online.
Yeah,
Friends and family specifically.
yeah,
And then I like a structured conflict, whether that's player versus player or just against like a puzzle like long with crosswords.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So like, I realize all of the games I like are single player or vastly single player.
Mhm.
All of them take place in medieval worlds. So, and the outcome is always a combination of skill and strategy. Like my favorite games are all the Souls games, out of the Colossus and Zelda. Literally, those are the only games I ever play. And they're all like good music, good story, skill, and strategy.
Mhm.
Like,
1, 2, 3.
I realize I have a lot of range in the games I play because I want to play different stuff at different times. So there's a lot of games that are kind of like creative outlets, like sandbox games, but also a lot of very challenging games as well. Few story games, and another kind of common point between quite a few of them was kind of some sort of multiplayer aspect. On the digital front, usually just like friends and such, but I also play like Pokemon trading card game, and I do that in person, so it's fun to like meet new people and like
Sure.
there's a community aspect to it.
My commonality, I found that I like strategy games and also games that have like a compounding feeling of progression. So I put like Cyberpunk, Rust, Factorio, Terraria. I put chess on there too. And I like games that in the beginning you feel like you can't really do anything, and by the end you're almost like God. Like you've got so much stuff you could conquer stuff that otherwise felt like impossible.
Satisfying progression. I'm right there with you. I'm surprised it hadn't been mentioned yet. That was what I was going to add if no one else did.
Or
Was 1 then 2?
Like one thing that I've noticed that comes up a lot in like when I was mentioning these is like exploration and atmosphere. Like not like direct storytelling, but especially like breadcrumbs that are left there for you to put pieces together.
Sure.
Especially like in Metroidvania games or I guess even the Fallout series as well.
Yeah.
And then of course anything that's challenging is Factorio's. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the gameplay, how fun the game is to actually play.
yeah, absolutely.
When you get the challenge.
So I put this together not knowing any of you or your preferences, but I want us to take a second and just appreciate how different everyone's answers were with regards to what they're looking for in games, what they choose, what their favorite games are, what experiences they're looking for out of those games. So again, you cannot please everybody with a game, but you can really target different aspects of what people are looking for in games out of a game. The last question I have for you, which we slightly hinted at already, but how does this relate to you or fail to relate to you as you see yourself as a person outside of games? How different is your game persona from your real persona?
I forgot to mention this everything. I didn't put Matthew on the list, and that definitely should.
Oh,
That was a
man.
big mistake. Totally wrote that up.
Maybe it kind of relates to like, because I didn't mention it, but like, I think a common thread is just there's replayability in all the games that there's always different things to do. That's kind of how I view what I try to do myself because like, there's different hobbies. I like to do this sometimes, but then other times I'll do something else.
Yeah.
Just kind of keeping options open.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do we think? Any people who feel like their game persona is really similar to their real life persona?
Feels like an idealized version of yourself.
Okay, sure.
Want to be.
I see some hands raised, some kind of in the middle. Anyone feel like their game persona is vastly different from their real life persona?
I go for the obvious character, I think usually.
Yeah. I have something to show you later. I downloaded a mod just so I could make the most hideous creation ever in a game a long time ago. Yeah. It's truly an abomination. It's an art. And I took the best screenshot.
I try to be more obnoxious and confident in like my game persona. That or like playing characters from a TV show. Like whenever I play Fallout, I literally name Mr. Clean. He literally
That sounds like a great way to play Fallout.
Yeah, he literally goes on like this fucking rampage, just chaos everywhere he goes, just wiping the entire map and his catchphrases, not a stain remains.
I love that. Yeah.
Something to say. I think basically everyone loves a character editor.
For
Oh,
sure.
yeah, the more cursed I can make my character instantly 10 out of 10 on IGN brain.
All right. Anything else to discuss with regards to this? I think it's really important to understand yourself as a game player at this kind of level and what do you want out of games, but also to hear what other people want out of games because you're not designing a game for yourself. There's definitely inspiration in there that you can use from what you enjoy with games, but it needs to all come together as one cohesive package, and it can't just be exactly what you want to play. It has to stand alone and speak to other people in addition to yourself. Onwards and upwards. Oh, that's the wrong one. We want that one first. All right. So we talked about illusory attitude. Kind of similarly to that, we have ludology, which is the actual name for the study of games and game design. So we're going to all be ludologists throughout this course. We're going to be studying games, how to design games, and how to make them fun. Over the years, there have been lots of different frameworks for how to break a game down. And the end goal of ludology is to be able to understand and discuss the structure of games, the fundamental elements in games, the influence that games have on the players who play them, on society as a whole, etc.
Oh, what does the namesake of ludology?
That is a great question that I don't know the answer to, but I can find that out and we can have a discussion.
It's Latin.
It sounds Latin.
It's also with their game jam. So
Yeah.
that comes
Yeah, that would make sense. We find an answer?
Ludus just means game.
Yeah. The ology of game.
I'll look that up.
So we're going to start with MDA, which stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. So it was proposed at GDC way back in 2001, and it's still used as a broad layer. It's kind of a very abstract idea. It's mainly used in professional environments to talk about the difference between playing a game and designing a game. So it is the single most familiar framework to a lot of professional game designers, and I like to talk about it first because it really does highlight that difference. You're going to be in a very different mindset when you design a game from when you play a game. So it's as fun as the conversations have been so far about what you enjoy in terms of the game playing experience. We're going to hit a bit of a reset button when we talk about designing a game, because you have to put yourself in a very different mindset to really build a game from the ground up to create the experiences that you want out of the game. You don't start with those experiences. So mechanics, components of a game at the data level of representation, the algorithmic level of representation. So what are the actual statements and rules embedded within the game, how it is played, what is allowed, what is not? How do we determine that? How are the rules enforced? The dynamics, kind of the runtime behavior of the mechanics. So once you start playing the game, what are the experiences that you can create when you interact with the mechanics? What is allowed and not allowed, and what does that create, make you feel? How does that become expression? And then aesthetics, that's the actual emotional response. So something like strategy is in the dynamic layer. Mechanics, the actual rules, then how you interact with the rules to create strategy, and then what does implementing a good strategy, how does that make you feel? That's kind of the three layers. The reason we choose to differentiate between these three broad categories is because we actually view them from different directions, whether we're designing or playing. Let me try to do this. And every quarter that I've used this diagram has been misinterpreted. So I almost hesitate to show it to people because the start is at the circle and the end is at the name. So players, when you first sit down with a game, what is it that you're trying to figure out? What is it? How is it that you first interact with a game?
With the mechanics.
The controls, right? You need to figure out how to control your character, what you can do and what you can't do. You don't start the game, it loads and you feel something as soon as you have control of your character. The first thing is usually frustration that the controls aren't the last game you played. So players start at the mechanics layer, and then once they figure out the mechanics, then they can figure out what they can and can't do. They start to strategize. They start to figure out, okay, what are the limitations of what I can do and what I can't do? How does this let me achieve what it is that I want to achieve out of the game? And finally, as you start to achieve or not achieve those things, you start to feel something finally. You stop feeling dead inside. Whereas from a designer's perspective, they're going to go the exact opposite way. They're going to start with the aesthetics. When you design a game, you start with a, what do I want players to experience when they play my game? You can't design for aesthetics, but it's the first important decision that you make. What should people be feeling when they play my game? Then you go from there to the emergent behavior. How are people going to accomplish this thing? What processes are going to allow players to experience what I want them to experience in my game? And then finally, how can I design the controls? How can I design the rules of the game as well in order to evoke those dynamics that evokes those aesthetics in the player? So you work in the opposite direction the players experience. Does that make sense? Is there buy-in to that idea? Any disagreement? Anything worth discussing there? So again, don't just look at the picture. We start at the circle and move toward the arrow. The people are where you end up. The designers end at mechanics, the players end at aesthetics. always a point of confusion. It is kind of a confusing diagram. So, with 8 minutes, this is a really awkward amount of time, not 8 minutes, but 10 minutes-ish. So I don't really know how much time we have for this. But our first major activity that's going to take us a couple of class periods, probably close to the rest of the week to do, is we are going to be playing a children's game, and then we are going to be making a children's game fun for a college student.
Oh, hell yeah.
The game is Snakes and Ladders. Very boring game. So I have brought with me copies of Snakes and Ladders game boards and some dice. I don't know if we really want to get started with this or just kind of start thinking about it. But the goal of this is now going to be, let's just take a look at the board for the moment. We can have a class discussion, and starting at the beginning of next class, we're going to start actually playing it and trying to modify the rules of it in order to make it somehow fun and engaging for an intelligent audience and not just something that can play itself. So let's start with just analyzing the game board as we have it here. Take off the annoying hand and pencil and try to figure out the positions of Snakes and Ladders. Why are they where they are? What can we conclude from that?
How do you play this game?
I don't know if I've ever.
Yeah, let's talk through that. So it's a 2-player game usually, although it can be played with more than 2 players. You're going to take turns rolling a d6, 6-sided die, and you will move forward. Note that the board also stakes. You will move forward the number of positions based on the pips of the die. And if you land on the bottom of a ladder, you may climb the ladder. And if you land on the top of a snake, you slide down the snake all the way to the tail. The first player to reach 100 wins. The technical rules of the game say that you can be at or after 100. A standard house rule is to make you have to land on 100 as a catch-up mechanic, not a mustard mechanic.
You relished that fun, didn't you?
I did. It was sweet relishing.
I must ask you a question. As far as like the catch-up mechanic goes, is that something that is standardized? You know, like
In games, yes. And we'll talk about why when we analyze that in a lot more detail later. But yeah, catch-up mechanics are standard. For good reason. Any thoughts on the positions of the snakes and ladders on this board?
There seem to be similar numbers of ladders. I haven't really looked at the snakes yet, but the ladders, there seem to be like only like one of like the big ones in the middle of the board. The other two at the top are kind of symmetrically placed. If you look at the bottom, you can notice that they're like similar, but some
Are they symmetrically placed in terms of the number of numbers that you jump up? One of them you go up 19, the other one you also go up 19. So it's very symmetric. Would that be the case anywhere on the board if they were symmetric?
all the ladders have a standard slope of 3. So if you take the slope of all the ladders, they average going up 3 and over 1.
Except for the one from 51 to 67.
There's one on 1. Do you start off the board?
Yeah, you start off.
That sounds like a really bad mechanic.
Yeah, if you're all on line,
Yeah.
it seems to be like usually, I think to like make the game longer or just like catch up mechanics and stuff like that, you'll notice there are like more snakes at the top.
Yeah,
especially, like
that is a
top
very
third
good thing to note. There are no snakes, very few snakes toward the bottom of the board, but there are a ton of them. 3 in the last row, 4 in the last 2 rows. Why?
I'm guessing for balance.
More tension as people get closer to the top.
Yeah, you have to be luckier to get closer to the finish. And there's always, from the person who's behind, from their perspective, do you feel in the game because there are so many snakes at the top of the board?
Because the other person could
If the other person hits a snake, then I'm back in it.
You allowed to move diagonally?
Sorry?
Are you allowed to move diagonally?
No, you have to follow the exact numerical progression of the board. It plays itself. There are no decisions in this game. You roll a die and you do what the outcome tells you to do. It's a very complicated coin flip. What else? Any other decisions that were made in the design of this game that you can point out? We mentioned that there's a ladder at the start at 1. Why at 1?
Probably so if you get a really horrible roll, you're not out of the game.
Yeah, the worst roll is actually 2, not 1. And that's just a psychological manipulation that the worst numerical outcome is now the best outcome. That doesn't really change anything. Now 2 is the worst and 1 is the best, but there's something psychological about feeling like I got an unlucky roll, but I got lucky with the unlucky roll.
I think it's
1 and 2.
It's also like a subversion of expectations. Like if you're a child playing this game and you're like, but 6 is a bigger number, so I want 6, and then like your friend rolls a 1 and they immediately move to 38, they're gonna be like, oh, so
1 is my new favorite.
1 is my new favorite. But the dice numbers actually matter depending on position now.
Yeah, interesting.
I think
1
I
and
think
2.
just I think going off what you're saying, like the entire game is like constantly reframes like what you want to roll. It's not about getting to the passive. It's also like hoping that you land on this specific number. Hopefully it's a 2 this time, or maybe if it's a 1, another 1 maybe hopefully not 5 this time.
Sure.
Like within the initial 1 to 6 roll as well, there's a second ladder on 4 as well.
Yeah.
So not only is 1 the best, but 4 is the second best.
Yeah. It makes it very interesting.
Random number in the middle tells it the second best even from the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's really much strategy. It's just number generation at this point.
Oh, there's number strategy. You're just rolling the dice the whole game.
Yeah, always been number
1 and 2.
generation. It also breaks it down into like more smaller goals. So someone's like looking towards something versus it just being getting to 100.
Yeah.
Constantly, oh, I want to get to this versus looking at just the very end.
Yeah, it kind of has a divide and conquer. Even though there's no strategy,
Yeah.
there's a short-term goal of I
or
want to
something
hit
you
the
can
next
look
ladder.
for, it seems closer.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
You have to land at the base of the ladder to climb the ladder?
Yes. You cannot land in the middle of the ladder. You have to land at the base in order to utilize it.
So for like thinking about ways to improve it, do we have to use this exact game board and like certain mechanics, or
Not necessarily. I will give this piece. I will hand these out as you start to design rules for that. But you can also start thinking between today and tomorrow about how you might change this to make it more dynamic, more decision based, more interactive. Those are the big flaws of this game. Is even though it's a multiplayer game, what you're doing is completely distinct from what the other player is doing. You're competing against them, but there's no interaction. There's one other big point that's kind of it's very challenging to see in this, but there's something that we haven't discussed yet. Where are the biggest ladders and the biggest snakes with respect to each other?
They cross each other.
They're very close, yeah.
They're very close. You take the largest ladder, and if you get an unlucky roll, you take the largest snake, and now you're past the largest ladder and can't use it again. So that creates a very interesting feeling of exhilaration followed by disappointment. So just like college. Sorry, that was just humor. Except apparently to half the class it was not. Too real. Yeah.
Just for college students. Figure it out, guys. Every time you slide down, snake will take its shot. Every time.
Imagine there might be a strategy to play.
Alright, so the plan for next class, we are going to play this game just as the rules dictate, just to get a sense of how bad this is. Take notes on what you're disappointed by, and then start to brainstorm some rules of what might make this more interesting. And we will go from there. I'll see you tomorrow for fun.
This is looking for my